So I wanted to take a minute and talk about my journey to the 2-Day Workweek book that I've written. And I've been fascinated with this relationship between effort and value creation since I was like 5 years old. And it started with this simple drawing that I made. I had walked into this room, showed my dad a picture that I had made, and he said, "Wow, I really like that. I like it so much I would pay you for it." And that like struck a chord with me. And from that moment, it kind of sparked something in me that I could create something that people valued and earned money for it. And within the next couple of hours, I had drawn several pictures and went door to door throughout my neighborhood asking if anyone would buy my artwork. And to my amazement, they did. Then, by the age of 6, I was actually pushing a lawnmower for my parents so that they would pay me money for it. And not because they asked me to do it, but because I really liked being able to earn money and work hard and then see that that hard work paid off. And so with that in mind, it really like evolved into multiple businesses that I created. I had a lawn mowing business when I was a teenager, and I ended up taking over a lawn mowing business from another like 17-year-old that was getting ready to kind of move on to something else, and was able to work a deal with him for him to hand over all of his lawn mowing accounts to me. And it was a pretty large neighborhood, so it was fairly lucrative. And then I ended up partnering and getting into a partnership with one of my friends who was a teenager. And we were making some pretty good money. We worked really hard and put in the time, and it wasn't easy. So I've really seen this correlation between hard work and value and earning. And that kind of guided me through my trajectory into business and working different jobs, working really hard, working a lot of hours, a lot of times late nights, traveling all the time, really hustling. Worked in corporate America, even had a software startup that I ran for about 10 years and just worked a ton, a lot of hard work. And it's really kind of guided me through my career. But then I found myself in this position where I wanted to really be an entrepreneur and run kind of these communities, bringing people together. And so this led me down this path of running the VR AR Association, which is a global trade association. I then founded the Applied AI Association in 2024, and are growing a global community of companies and individuals applying that technology. Meanwhile, I've been running a consulting business called the Immerse Group, and we do fractional business development. And while there's a lot of freedom with running your own business, it was kind of like this trading time for money. And still is like the more business you got, the harder and more time you had to put in to make it run. And so, like, building people into those companies to allocate the work has been great. And it's kind of offloaded some of that effort. And then, of course, as many of us have found, getting into artificial intelligence and starting using generative AI to help with business has really changed the game. And it's one of those where when you first use it and realize you could save 4 or 5 hours of time in putting together documents and move that into maybe 10 to 15 minutes with some prompts and light editing, it really caused me to start rethinking like, hey, I've been helping these other companies put technology into place. Why don't I do it for myself and try to gain back some of that freedom? And and so this put me on a path back in 2024 of starting to implement AI technologies and then drawing upon this kind of mindset of a CEO and a mindset shift to think bigger, think bolder, take risks, and think a lot differently. And so that's where the book 2-Day Workweek comes into play is how can we take what we've done in 5 days and compress it down into two. And this was actually inspired also by an interview of Bill Gates, who was on the Jimmy Fallon show. And he was asked a question about AI and talked about how healthcare and even education was going to become essentially free with AI, and it's going to be commoditized and get really impressive healthcare and education, but for very low costs. And then he kind of went on to say, I don't know, maybe we'll end up working 2 or 3 days a week in the next 5 years. And so that kind of like really triggered and spawned me to start thinking about this, and decided to turn that concept into a book called The 2-Day Workweek, but really dive more into like beyond the AI tools and really build a 3-part framework. So this 3-part framework is AI tools that you can use. It's a mindset shift and how to think through accomplishing things a lot differently. And then it's also different systems that you can put in place to start automating. And there's this term, agentic AI, which is turning AI into agents that are going out and doing things, not just based on a prompt, but giving it instructions so that it goes out and does things on a regular basis, on a timely basis, and usually happens to involve multiple different tasks that you can put into place. So these things are evolving really quickly, but I just felt compelled to bring this to market. The book is pretty extensive, but as I started going into this, I realized the book could be 500 pages or more if we really wanted to dive into how to implement all these different types of technologies. So, with that, that started to evolve into hey, we should have some additional training and courses that can come out of this book. So, we've tried to make it easy for people to step into that, and we've got some free webinars that we're going to be doing, and we've got other workshops that allow you to start lightweight, and the price points on those lightweight virtual workshops are easy to step into. And then we even have full 1 day and 2 day workshops where you can come in and deep dive and kind of go through a white glove process of how do you implement these technologies. And we can even walk you through setting up some of the workflows and the tools. And then finally, this has kind of evolved into a new software opportunity. And so I've got a team that's building a software solution that will allow you to essentially plug into a lot of these workflows through software and make it super easy for you to implement a 2 day work week. The 2 day work week is kind of a philosophy, and I think it can also be very practical. And even today, if you really dive in deep, you could produce what you're doing now in 5 days of work in 2 days. But as I started to really dive in and interview people, I found that humanity in general, we like accomplishing things, and happiness a lot of times has to do with accomplishments. And so while you may get to a point where it's like, hey, I can do what I did in 5 days in two, that frees up more time to maybe lay on the beach, but that is only fun for so long. And then you want to start accomplishing other things. But it frees you up to do the things you want to do and the accomplishments that you want to achieve that maybe you don't have to in a typical job to earn money. And I hope this book then inspires a lot of people to go ahead and really become creative and maybe innovate and think bigger and think differently. And at the same time, really dive into what is meaningful. And so throughout the book, we talk not only about technology and systems and mindset, but we also go into kind of health and wellness and what this productivity can mean to spending more time on those elements of your life. We also talk about the micro vacations concept. And then, that's basically a 24-hour vacation to an exotic location that kind of gives you the shot in the arm of excitement and kind of keeps you motivated and going, but allows you to sprinkle in a lot of like interesting and fun experiences throughout a year instead of taking one big vacation every year. So hope you enjoy it. And I'd love to hear comments and feedback from anybody who's in reading the book or even thinking about reading it. And we're going to try to also build a community around this book where you can go in and converse and talk to people about different strategies, what you're implementing, different tools that you're using, and that community then will kind of lift everybody up. So thanks a lot for listening to what inspired me on this book, and I hope you find it inspirational as well. Thanks.